I think the biggest misconception is they don't realize how difficult a situation was that he inherited and the nature of the problems he inherited. The biggest problem in 1981 was inflation. It wasn't slow growth. It wasn't even high unemployment. It was inflation, and this is very important in terms of understanding why his policies worked and why doing the same thing again today would not necessarily work. And also, he inherited a tax system in which the rates were very high. The top rate went up to 70%, and inflation was pushing people up into higher tax brackets by the day. So you had high and rising tax rates. Today, of course, we have much lower tax rates. We're no inflation, bordering on deflation. And so it's important to understand this because at the time Reagan took office, most economists thought tax cuts would be massively inflationary. So they thought his tax cut was a dreadful idea. It would be like pouring gasoline on the fires of inflation. He argued that inflation was essentially a monetary phenomenon. It had to do with the Federal Reserve, didn't have anything to do with fiscal policy. He thought that tax cuts would increase the incentive for people to work. It would deal with the problem of bracket creep and so on, and cushion the blow that came from a tight money policy, which was necessary to break the back of inflation. And in fact, although we had a recession, 1981-82, from the tight money policy, it was really very shallow by comparison to the recessions we've seen in recent years. And this was really quite a remarkable accomplishment. By 1984, inflation had come down from double-digit rates to the low single-digit rates. The economy was expanding, unemployment was falling, and I think these are all caused by Reagan's policies. If we had done what conventional economists wanted to do, I think things would have been much worse. And I think that today, because inflation is not a problem and because taxes are much lower, it simply doesn't make any sense to cut taxes the way Reagan did. You really can't, because the tax code and the economy are quite different. So the idea that if Reagan did it and it worked, let's do it again, I think that's probably the biggest misconception.